Hey everyone, welcome back to KC3D Sparks. Today we are going to be continuing our Aboleth and we're going to do a quick rig, and I mainly want to go over weight paints because we've done similar rigs already. So I just want to briefly go over that, make sure you guys, know what we're doing, and then I want to go into weight paints because I feel like I usually forget to actually go into the weight paints a little bit. So we're going to go into that a bit more. So as you can see, I did edit the model just a teeny bit. I added some thick fins up on top. I don't know how I feel about them. I definitely could add some more detail to the other tentacles as well, but I figured for now this is a decent enough model that we can just go ahead, rig, and go from there. So all I want to do first is just do Shift A, and we're going to go down to here to armature, and I wanted to start with a single bone. Now it's going to pop up and you probably can't see it. That's fine. It is there, I promise. But what we can do is go here to the armature tab and hit X-ray, so that way it pops through. Now for this armature, basically what I want to do is create a main head point with a jaw and then extrude out and do the tentacles. So this main one here will be our head. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and tab into edit mode. And you'll notice underneath the item tab, it has the armature and then the bone. So we're going to just name this as either skull or head or main, something that reminds you that this is like your main bone, essentially. I'm going to do head and go from there. I'm just going to go ahead and select the bone, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Now from here, I do want to go ahead and just push this back. Maybe bring this piece forward a little bit. So that way this piece is before where the tentacles start. So it's going to be a little bit smaller of a bone. I'm just going to go ahead and add these jaw pieces real quick. So we're going to do jaw lower, jaw upper. Now for the tentacles, what I want to do, we'll just again do E to extrude, but then I'm going to do Alt P and hit disconnect bone. So that way it is still parented to the head. You'll notice there's still a dotted line, but we can move it freely and it doesn't stay attached. So we can just move that along. Now what I want to do, once I get this bottom piece in position, I'm just going to grab this end point and drag it all the way to the end. Then I can just hit W, subdivide, and we're going to add in, let's try 12 cuts. Oh, that actually works pretty good. And then we just need to reposition them a little bit. So I'm going to drag this down so that way it is on the main part. Just minor tweaking. And actually, I want this down a little further, so that way it is in the center. Push that down. And we'll just do the same thing. So I'm just going to do E to extrude, pull that out, Alt P, disconnect bone. Going to go into top view, pull that out. W, subdivide, and for this one we don't need quite as many. Maybe I'll just do 10. Oops. Looks good. We'll just drag this, make sure it goes all the way to the end. And then just edit these a little bit as well. Make sure your bones position precisely. And of course, you can go through and rename them as you go. For these ones, I'm just going to do all the renaming after. Now, since this one is the exact same as the other side, what I'm gonna do is just select them all, Shift D, and move them over here. After you move it, you'll notice that the position's a little weird. So we could try to mirror it. So if we do Control M and do on the X axis, doesn't quite work. So we'll probably just want to go ahead and position them manually. Just pull them over along the X again. And it doesn't have to be completely perfect, just as long as it's actually in the mesh would be good. Okay, so there's that. And we'll do one more. Need to extrude. Alt P. Pull that all the way down. And this one's a little shorter. I'm just going to do 9. Okay. That's a good start. Now, if you wanted, you could even go and add bones for these fin pieces. So that way you could kind of curve them and make it a little bit more organic. So what I'm going to do for this end piece, at least, I don't know if I'm going to worry about these guys, but I'm going to do each extrude. Pull this out. So that way we can kind of control these a little bit. I might go ahead and also disconnect them as well. So that way it's a little bit more free and hopefully we can control it a little bit easier. This part's a little experimental for me, so I don't know exactly how well it will work, but we're gonna find out. Let's pull that down to here. You pull this back. And even though it's not connecting here, we can still influence it with the weight paint. So that's why I'm kind of being a little bit looser with these guys. Oops, except I don't want them to go sideways like that. So I'm going to push them back in. So we can try that out. Now, the only thing is, we do need to go ahead, apply the mirror modifier and do the Boolean for all that stuff. So I'm going to speed through that because we have already gone through Boolean modifiers and mirror modifiers before. So just give me 1 second. So we're just going to duplicate that and apply everything. All right, that's good enough for now. I didn't apply all the teeth, but you guys get the idea of what you're supposed to do with the Boolean modifiers after the eyeballs. So just keep going in, making sure that everything is set. And yeah, everything is cool. I'm going to unhide our armature so that way we can go ahead and get a good look at it. So what we want to do is going to save it. Right click the mesh and then right click the armature. We're going to do Control P. We're going to do with automatic weights. Usually they're pretty okay, but of course we're going to go and edit them as well. Cool. So once it's applied, I ended up removing the gel pieces just because I'm probably not going to end up manipulating the mouth that much. But everything else is still basically the same. But of course you guys can leave the gel pieces if you want. But anyway, once that's applied, you can go into pose mode and just start grabbing pieces, making sure it works. I mean, obviously if you literally grab them, it's just gonna stretch it, but it's a good way to test it and make sure that it did work. And then your main piece should control everything. So obviously the teeth that we didn't connect yet are still there, but it does grab everything else, and that's perfect. So we have our main handle there, which is great. So you can go in, test that out, and pose it. But what I mainly wanted to check was the weight paints and go into that in case you guys were interested, since I hadn't done that too much. So this part will probably be more of the section to check that out on. So I'm gonna go into top view, rotate on this so we can actually like manipulate this part. Rotate it along the Z again. So I'd want it to control more of this part of the fin too. So that's probably one of the areas we'll go ahead and fix and use as our example. So if we select on the mesh, go to weight paint, you'll notice that there's all this kind of rainbow effect happening. Over here, you'll notice where you have your brushes. So the default is draw. So this will like add on the area of effect essentially for what's happening with the bone. Obviously I don't want that all affected, so I'm going to undo what I just did. To remove some of it, obviously we can just switch to subtract and have that take care of that. Now that's actually pretty good. I just want to influence this part a little bit more, so I'm going to go back into draw and we're going to turn the strength way down, because right now if I draw something, red is like 100% influenced, and then of course there's a gradient out. So what we're gonna do, turn that strength way down so that way when I come over here, we'll basically just painting just like that, which that might be a little heavy. So I'm gonna go back to subtract, turn the strength down again to get rid of this yellow line so it's back to green, so it's not as influenced. Kind of more like that. And then what we can do is right click on the other bone and that will switch to that heat map. So what's nice is even though you're selected onto the mesh, when you right click on the bones, it will still show you, hey, this is where your weight paint is. So I'm going to switch back to draw so I can influence these fins as well. Now, you'll notice I did it to the one side though, and it's not affecting the other side. So we will have to go back to this bone for a second to influence this side of the paint. And if you wanted, you could even have these parts darker and then the actual webbing on the inside a little bit lighter, so that way these are affected more than the webbing, which would probably make a little bit more sense too. So, oops, didn't mean to grab that. I'm just going to go back into side view here real quick. Darken those. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can influence this. Make this a little darker to see how it works out. Like I said, I'm kind of experimenting a little bit with this, so hopefully you guys don't mind. And then we're going to go to the other side, do the same thing. So get that basic flow and heavily influence these parts in between the web, or for the main part. You know what I mean. Okay. So now that we have that, let's go back into our pose mode. Grab this, I'm gonna hit rotate along the Z. Okay, so it's kind of working, but you'll notice where the weight paint is not affected. So yeah, that definitely needs a lot of tweaking, so that way it won't basically look like it's disintegrating. Let's try the top one real quick. Oops. Yeah, not quite what we're looking for, but that one's a little bit better, less disintegrating. And yeah, you guys can go in, just have fun with the weight paints just like that. And then if you wanted, you could of course influence these guys. So if we go on to here and look at, whoops, weight paint, you'll notice that this is influenced. So if we are in pose mode, if we rotate this, should be affected, which works good, but it's not manipulating it at all. So that's helpful as well. So once you get all of your weight paints done and everything, all you have to do to apply the pose is go into, I'm in the wrong object, your modifier tab for your mesh. You'll hit apply, but I would recommend duplicating it first, so that way if you ever want to tweak the pose or anything like that later on, you can go back and do so, duplicate it again, reapply the new pose, and then you'll be able to print it out after you export it as your STL. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to post those in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this quick rigging and weight painting tutorial. Other than that, I will see you guys next week. Feel free to post any recommendations or anything like that down below, and I will see you guys next week.